What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Playbook Sports Podcast. You guys know what time it is, man. I've been talking about it for weeks and weeks. I have been grinding behind the scenes, watching tape, watching all of these players I'm about to talk about. Let's dive in, without further ado, to Mock Draft 1.0 right here on the Mock Draft Simulator on PFF's website. This is just the one I know and the one I trust, so that's why I keep going with this one. If you guys have other ones you like, I'm sure they're just as good. This just happens to be the one I like. So we're going to select all teams, full draft. Again, no trades in this one. Way too soon to predict any sort of trades. I'll mention a couple spots where I think we could see a trade, but I'm just obviously not going to do those today. So let's get into this thing. Pick number 1, Tennessee Titans. Congratulations. If you don't win the Super Bowl, you may as well get pick number 1, right? So there's a fun way to spin it for you Titans fans. I've been reading a lot of reports. I've seen several reports that said that the Tennessee Titans, big fans of Miami quarterback Cam Ward, and that's what I'm going to have them taking here at pick number 1. Will Levis was rotating reps with Mason Rudolph. That's just not going to cut it. Cam Ward, a really solid quarterback prospect. I think he's probably, I don't think he's as good as the first 3 quarterbacks in last year's draft. Like, I would have Williams, May, and Daniels all above him as a prospect, but I think he's would be the best in that second tier of guys, and that second tier of guys looks pretty dang good so far, right? I'd have him better than Penix, Nix, and McCarthy. So somewhere in the middle there. And I think he's better than Shedeur Sanders. I think he's got a better arm, more athletic, maybe not quite as accurate, but still pretty darn accurate. But just this is the kind of guy that teams are looking for, the athlete. And Shedeur Sanders is shockingly not that great of an athlete. Once you watch his tape, you'll see what I'm talking about. But Cam Ward goes pick number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. Pick number 2, Cleveland Browns on the clock here. A popular pick has been QB. I read your guys' comments, right? I read every single comment and respond to every single comment. So definitely get in the comments at the end of this video. But I don't think Shedeur is the type of prospect, like the caliber of prospect, to command where he goes. He's not a Manning, right? Yeah, he's a Sanders. Sure, Deion was great. But Shedeur Sanders is not like this all-world quarterback who can dictate where he goes. That being said, the Browns have adjusted the contract of Deshaun Watson, who is still hurt and has a setback from the Achilles, but I'm not going to change course. I'm going to stay with who I'm going with here. They need a tackle. They're losing Jedrick Wills, and his replacement isn't on there. Do you really trust DeJuan Jones, too, to be the guy when he comes back from injuries? You've got to figure out that offensive line now. And I'm going with OT number 1 in the class for me. That's Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. Huge fan of him. Best pass pro. Best at pass protection. He's the number 1 tackle in my, based on what I've watched, all the tape I've watched on these offensive linemen. Best pass protector, and he's pretty dang good against the run, too. He's getting better against it as he goes. I think he could be a really good left tackle anchor for them and someone to build around, and maybe just, give Deshaun Watson another year or 2, I suppose. I mean, he's going to cost you all the money in the world regardless, and you did get a little bit of relief when he restructured his deal or redid his contract. So we'll go Kelvin Banks Jr. here at pick number 2. I thought about a few guys in this spot, but ultimately I'm settling on offensive tackle number 1, position of need for them. Could be a trade down spot. Number 3, we've got the Giants on the clock here, and this one, I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to be that great. I'm going to have the Giants pass. Okay? That's crazy. I just think his teammate, Travis Hunter, is that good of a player. I think Travis Hunter is awesome. Again, all this discourse because of the Heisman voting and people wanting Jeanty to win the Heisman over him. I'm a huge Ashton Jeanty guy, but let's not downplay what Travis Hunter does. He's could be one of the top corners in the league if he sticks to that position, and he could be one of the better receivers in the league too. He's a two-way star, and you pick where you want him to go, and he's awesome. That's a player, that's a cultured pick. That's a pick you want this guy on your roster. At the end of the day, this is someone you absolutely want to have. I think he's the best player in the class. I don't know what you're going to do at quarterback. Maybe you hope you get a Manning next year. If Archie decides to come out, maybe you take a quarterback in the second round here and hope maybe a Quinn Ewers can figure it out. I know Carson Beck is now in the transfer portal, so he's not coming out. I just don't like Shedeur Sanders in this spot. I don't think the Giants are going to do it. I don't know why. I just don't feel like he's going to the Giants. Call me crazy if you want to. Giants fans, I want to know what you think about that pick. I like Travis Hunter. Pick number 4, New England Patriots. Would love it if they traded away Drake May, but they're not going to. So let's get him a weapon. Tetairoa, McMillan. Not the best separator. I've been saying that the entire mock draft season so far. He's a go-up-and-get-it guy. He's a red zone threat. Now, if the Patriots are going to go out and get a T. Higgins, and you complement him with Tetairoa, McMillan, and you throw a Pop Douglas in the slot, or a Keishon Boutte in the slot. I mean, you've got options now, and it's the only way to ever know if Drake May is going to be any good in this league. He showed flashes this year. His numbers weren't great, but he was with the worst supporting cast. They need offensive line as well. Could see this being a Will Campbell spot, but I like Tetairoa McMillan to go to New England here as they get a weapon for their young QB. Jaguars on the clock here. This has been one of my most mocked selections. It's Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan. I just think he's probably CB1 in this class, even though you could argue that Travis Hunter could be if he was a full-time DB. And the Jaguars' defensive back room is absolutely atrocious. I like Jarian Jones in the nickel, and they've got Tyson Campbell on the outside, so they've got okay, but nothing great. I think that Will Johnson has prototypical CB1 size, and some of his tape looks a little bit. I mean, he'll definitely be the best corner they have had since Jalen Ramsey when he was in his prime there. He steps in and is immediately, I think, their most talented corner. And then you've got 3 solid corners, and now you're like, okay, we got this. We've got a decent secondary now. We're looking good. Vegas on the clock at pick 6 here, fresh off of firing both their coach and GM. Now you bring in an offensive guy, and you bring in a new GM, and you bring in your new quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders has fallen down the board for me, man. I don't even know if he's going to end up with a true first-round grade when it's all said and done. I think there's a distinct possibility Cam Moore is my only first-round grade quarterback. Shedeur Sanders does not have a great arm. He's not a great athlete, and he has to throw the ball. He has to anticipate so much and throw the ball so early because he doesn't have the zip on his passes you want to see. So I have some concerns there, but what he does do really well is on the mental side of the game. His processing after the ball is snapped, his ability to read a defense, understand, they shifted into a cover on this side. This is now cover 2 instead of cover 4 like they were showing, or they're running a quarters. He's excellent between the ears. His mental ability as a quarterback is the best in this class. So I'm going to have Vegas, who desperately needs a quarterback and they have no direction at all. Probably going to be getting rid of even more pieces this offseason. I think you get your quarterback in place, you find the right head coach, and you go from there. That's the best you can hope for. So Shedeur at pick 6. Moving us to the Jets here at pick number 7. Another common one for me. This one would be between 2 players. This was between Mason Graham and Abdul Carter. They just don't need an edge rusher with Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald there already, and McDonald looked good this year, and Jermaine Johnson looked good before his injury. So let me give him a stud on the inside and Mason Graham. Pound for pound, best player in the draft, I would argue. Just an absolute game-wrecking defensive tackle. And then you just pair him up with Quinnen Williams, and then you've got your edge rushers, and you just build a nasty defensive line in New York. And that's what they're known for, is their defense. This gets them going on the right track again after having to find a new head coach and new GM. So I like Mason Graham falling to pick 7. Bit of a steal there for them. And the Panthers sprint to the podium and turn in the card for Abdul Carter, who, the more I watch on this guy, the more I like what I see. What an absolute menace that this man is on the defensive side of the ball. The Panthers' pass rush is worst in the league. Abdul Carter would be the best defensive end on that team right now. And he is as bad as he's going to be in his career right now. He's still a new edge rusher. This is still new to him. And he's still putting up the numbers he's putting up. Just for brief reference here, I mean, he's got 12 sacks this year, 37 quarterback hurries, and he's an elite grade as a pass rusher this year. He has been unbelievable. He did not do this these last 2 years. He was an off-the-ball guy. He only played 132 snaps combined as an edge rusher the last 2 seasons, 564 this year, and you see what it's done. This guy's an absolute freak. I watched some of his matchups against good tackles that I like in this class. Wasn't really fair. He's got an unbelievable first step, and he's just so smart, too. And he's, like I said, he's only going to get better. This guy's a freak. I think he steps in, and he could be better than Brian Burns for you pretty quickly. Star. This guy has superstar written all over him, in my opinion. Pick 9, New Orleans Saints. Shockingly, this isn't listed as a need here. I don't know what they're going to do at the tackle spot or even the guard spot. You need a left guard. I love putting Will Campbell next to Talize Fuanga, truthfully. I think that would build a left side of that offensive line that you can just write it in. 10 years, right there. We've got our tackle, we've got our guard. And they both have flexibility. Both of those guys can play all 4 offensive line positions. You cannot beat that kind of flexibility. I have no idea what direction the Saints are going in. They're clearly not trying to compete, but also they have an aging roster that's very expensive, so they kind of have to try to compete. Sorry, Saints fans. I don't know what you guys are going to do, but I do think that if you take Will Campbell, you will not be disappointed, so I'm going to mock him here at pick number 9, leading us to round out the first 10 picks of the draft, going with Chicago here. Probably bummed out to see Will Campbell off the board, But I think someone we are sleeping on is Josh Simmons, tackle out of Ohio State. This guy was awesome, just straight up awesome. I think he's the most athletic tackle in the class. Again, he's maybe not the best pass or run blocking one, but he's the most athletic for sure. This injury has us all forgetting just how good he really is. And the Bears could transition him to guard if they needed to. He's got the play strength for it. He's got the ability to move guys if he wants to. But I think you'd almost be wasting him as a guard. I would really consider putting him at tackle and trying Braxton Jones at guard, see if he's better as a guard. And you can try a few different combinations of it. But man, is Josh Simmons super talented, and his numbers will back me up. I mean, no sacks, no hits, one hurry in 158 pass block snaps. You can't beat that. It's pretty much nothing. You just weren't getting past Josh Simmons. Go watch his tape. He is awesome, and he is climbing up my draft boards. There's not much difference between him and Will Campbell for me right now. San Francisco on the clock here, definitely bummed out. Oh, and Josh Simmons sort of reminds me of Trent Williams. I don't know why. Speaking of the Niners, pick 11 here. Bummed out to see Josh Simmons go because I feel like that's the guy that they're looking at. However, they get a pretty good consolation prize in a guy that has fallen down boards a little bit, was considered a top 5 pick in this draft when you were looking at like the way too early mock drafts for 2025. I am a massive fan of this player, and that is too far down this board here. And James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. The numbers back it up. The grade backs it up. This guy's awesome. He's more of an off-ball. He can play with his hand in the dirt, which is what you're going to ask him to do in San Francisco, right? That's what they do there. So I see he's the best pass rusher, like pure pass rusher, highest floor pass rusher in this class. Now, Abdul Carter's ceiling, higher than his. Floor for James Pierce is the highest floor of these edge rushers, in my opinion. You put him on that defensive line with Joey Bosa, and you've got your bookend edge rushers. I have written Bosa and Hargrave, but it looks like they're going to move on from Hargrave. But I love James Pierce here. And yes, I know, like I said, he plays more of a stand-up outside linebacker, and he'll have to switch it up and put his hand in the dirt for San Francisco as a true in a 4-3. But I think he can transition to that no problem. And I'm a massive fan of James Pierce Jr., and I'm really bummed that the Niners get him because he's going to be a star. Dallas Cowboys on the clock. And honest to God, this pick completely depends on if Jerry Jones took his medication in the morning or if he is on a manic episode. Because it can go two ways. There's two ways here. There's the fun, flashy pick. That's Ashton Jeanty. They need a running back. There's no question that they need a running back on this team. Rico Dowdle's not even under contract. So what? Deuce Vaughn's your only running back under contract since you cut Zeke? You don't have anything here. But damn, this running back class is so deep. Using pick 12 on a running back would be something crazy to me. Unless you're trying to make headlines, which we all know Jerry Jones loves to do. Cowboys fans, you're going to end up with Jeanty. I'm sorry. It's what's going to happen. I'm not doing that today. Instead, I'm going to give you guys the position you need. And with DeMarvion Overshown getting hurt and blowing out his knee, I mean, tearing everything in his knee, poor guy, I'm giving him Jaylen Walker, who some people think edge. I think stand-up would be better for him. Why not both? That's my question. Why not both? DeMarcus Lawrence is getting up there in age, and Jaylen Walker can fill in for him as an edge rusher. He can be a stand-up linebacker as well. He's more than athletic enough for that. I'm a fan of him. Do-it-all type of player, chess piece on the defensive side of the ball. Nothing wrong with that. And Colin, you're welcome. Dolphins on the clock here, and it makes me sad because this really needs to be an offensive lineman. This really needs to be an offensive lineman. It's not going to be, though, because that's not what Miami does. They don't believe in the offensive line. What they do believe in is a good safety. Anthony Weaver is our defensive coordinator as it stands today. Assuming he's still here, he's going to want a Kyle Hamilton-type guy in that secondary. Javon Holland and Jordan Poyer were an awful safety tandem this year. I don't know what happened to Javon Holland, man. He's fallen off these last 2 years. I mean, talk about the worst possible time to have your worst season of your career. Malachi Starks steps in, day one starter. He brings some dog to the defense. He's a big hitter. He's a ball hawk. He does it all. He's probably one of the 5 best players in this entire draft class. So I'm happy that Miami gets him. I really want an offensive lineman, but Malachi Starks is a pretty dang good consolation prize. Colts on the clock here. I've been giving them Colston Loveland a lot. I'm going to go the other way this time. I'm going to give them Tyler Warren. I'm going to go with the tight end here, who I also wouldn't mind seeing Miami take at 13. For what it's worth, Tyler Warren is a true do-it-all player as well. Obviously, I mean, his season this year was crazy, right? Let's look at the stats here for Tyler Warren. Over 1,000 yards, over 1,100 yards, 98 catches on 128 targets. Plays all over the place, elite grade. All around, I think he's the best all-around tight end in this class. His hands aren't as good as Colston Loveland, and he's not as good after the catch as Colston Loveland, but he's a better blocker. I would say he's got just as sure of hands. Maybe can't go out and get the crazy catches like you might see from Loveland. But I think Tyler Warren can play all over the place, just like a Brock Bowers. I'm not saying he's going to be Brock Bowers, Colts fans, so please don't freak out about it if it happens. I mean, he's awesome, but I don't know if he's Brock Bowers awesome, who just broke records. But he's got all the size you'd want in a tight end who can run block, and catch passes, throw passes. I mean, this dude does everything. This is a great weapon to give Anthony Richardson, just a sure-handed guy. Hey, check it down. You just find Tyler Warren and throw him the football. He's awesome. I like him at pick 14 to the Indianapolis Colts. Pick 15, Atlanta on the clock here. It has been and will continue to be an edge rusher, and I'm going upside, and that is Mykel Williams out of Georgia. Just one of those freak athletes out of Georgia, man. That's just all they have. Hasn't really had maybe the statistics to back up this high of a pick, but 6'5", 265, all of the upside in the world. He'd be a really good fit in Raheem Morris's 3-4 scheme as a stand-up edge rusher that can also drop back in coverage. He's plenty athletic for that, and he comes with more than enough size for the position. I think Mykel Williams, once the combine comes around, this is a guy that will be moved up draft boards if he's not already. I've seen him mocked in the top 10. I'm not there yet, but once I see his combine, I might be. 16, we've got the Arizona Cardinals on the clock here, and I'm going with one of my guys in this draft class. It doesn't say that they need cornerback help. I think they need cornerback help. I think you go with Shavon Revel here. Love his size at the position, 6'3", 193. This is an island corner. He can just lock down one side. And you look at that DB room, and it's okay. It's nothing to write home about. You've got the Melton from Rutgers last year in that room. I don't love it. I just like Shavon Revel's upside as a true lockdown number one corner. He compares very favorably to someone like Christian Gonzalez. Reminds me a lot of Christian Gonzalez, and we all know how good Christian Gonzalez is when he's been healthy and on the field. So I hope Arizona doesn't overthink it and just go kind of maybe not best player available on their board, one of the best players on my board. I really like Shavon Revel, and I like them taking a corner and solidifying the back half of that defense. Cincinnati on the clock. You all know that this one is Ashton Jeanty, even though it's not listed as a need. Yeah, Chase Brown's looked great. He's looked really good. Ashton Jeanty has put up the season he has put up, which, just in case you forgot what kind of a season that was, 2,600 yards, 29 touchdowns to go with another 140 receiving yards. Yeah, he did that in one season. That's 2 really good seasons. That's 2 amazing seasons. That's 1,300 yards a season and, 15 touchdowns a season? And he did it in one season. And the defenses knew what they were going to do. He did that against stacked boxes. You go ahead and stack the box against the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and watch what happens. You can't. You can't do that. So now Ashton Jeanty is getting all these favorable matchups where they have a lighter box for him to go through. Good luck, man. Good luck. Again, I'm all about just leaning in to turning a strength into a super strength. That defense will struggle. They're going to have a new DC instilling a new program, so we'll see what that's all about. But I like Ashton Jeanty's fit there. And yeah, Chase Brown's good, but that doesn't stop you from drafting someone like him, much like Tyler Algier did not stop the Atlanta Falcons from drafting Bijan Robinson at pick 8. Seahawks on the clock here at pick 18. One of my guys that has, after a little bit more tape study on him, now to be fair, his tape study was against Abdul Carter. I watched Abdul Carter kind of work him, man. I love Wyatt Milum because I love his potential as a guard. I think he'd be, if he was just a true guard, best guard in the entire class. But even as a tackle, right? Look at 0 sacks. 0 sacks the last 3 seasons. An elite grade on PFF. Only 7 hurries last year, too. He's awesome at tackle. I just think he'd be better suited at guard simply because he can get beat with speed, like Abdul Carter did. There was very back-to-back reps almost where Abdul Carter goes around the outside and he beats him, but he doesn't get home. But it's like, okay, now Milum's like, I gotta set faster because I'm not that quick laterally. And then Milum oversets and he beats him inside. So I don't like seeing weaknesses in these guys at tackle. Again, I think Milum is a mauler and would be awesome as a guard. So that's what I'm kind of projecting here is they take him, they stick with their 2 tackles that they have, and they put him into guard. And I think he would be a rock star offensive guard. Next up, we've got Houston on the clock. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome Tate Ratledge to the first round. They've got him way lower than I do. This is a blue-collar, road paving offensive guard. Why would Houston not want that? That's my question. Awesome size at 6'6", 320 pounds. I think he's a little bit bigger than Tyler Booker, if I remember correctly, with the 6'6", 320. Yeah, 6'5", 325, so just about the same size. Tate Ratledge is so good. He's just going to move you. That's what he's going to do. His tape is so strong. He's just going to move you out of his way. You're in my way, I'm going to move you. And there's an inevitability to it. And that is what Houston needs. He's going to bring some attitude to that offensive line. You plug him in next to Laramie Tunsil, and you've got a killer left side of the offensive line in front of C.J. Stroud. And maybe you can run the ball between the tackles a little bit now because he will get people out of the way. I really like Tate Ratledge to climb up into the first round just because of how rock solid he is. Now, some of you may have Tyler Booker as the best guard in this class, or even someone who's a tackle transitioning to, like I would have Wyatt Milum as guard number 1. You could have Tyler Booker, Jonah Savaiania, sorry, Jonah. He could be one of the best guards in the class if that's where he ends up sticking at. But I really like Tate Ratledge's tape. Go check it out. He was awesome. Broncos on the clock here, and they are just absolutely giddy with who fell to them in this class. The picks aren't here always just a little bit different than tankathons, and it drives me nuts. I should just start using this when I'm making this, but that's besides the point. The pick here stays the exact same. There's just no way Luther Burden should be on the board still, and he is. But there's just not that many teams that need wide receiver help. I could see him going to Cincy. Could see Cincinnati as a spot there, but I think they need a running back as well, and Jeanty is awesome. Luther Burden is fantastic. All of a sudden, now you've got a trio, you've got a quartet of weapons in Denver that you can be proud of. Cortland Sutton, Luther Burden, Troy Franklin was coming on a little bit, playing better, and Denzel Mims, right? Denzel Mims, yeah, pretty sure. Mims, let's go with Mims. Denzel Mims, pretty sure that's who it is. I can't think of his first name. Besides the point, you've got weapons now for Bo Nix. Luther Burden in the slot with Sutton and Franklin on the outside. That's a scary thing, man. He's an elite separator, one of the best separators in this class. Right around him and Emeka Egbuka are two of the best separators in general. Him getting pick 20 here is a home run pick for the Denver Broncos, who need to add some youth to that wide receiver, some youth and some blue chip talent to that wide receiver room. Tampa Bay on the clock here. I've got them going with edge rusher Nic Scourton. I love this fit for Tampa Bay. Super powerful against the run. Has the size. Obviously, we'll pull up his size for you guys. He's a big defensive end. 6'4", 285. This is not your 4'3" defensive end. This is a 3'4" interior defensive end where you've got your nose tackle in Vita Vea, and you've got someone like Cal Cansey, and then you put Nic Scourton on the other side of that, and then you've got your two outside linebackers rushing the passer. Nic Scourton is a chess piece defensive end. He can rush the passer on the outside too if he has to. He's shown it in college. However, you just line him up wherever you need him to be. He'll be too fast for the guards, and he's pretty damn strong too. Him versus Will Campbell was a fair fight, and Will Campbell's a top 10 pick in this draft. Will Campbell had trouble moving him. Big fan of Nic Scourton and what he does, and I think he would be a really good pick for Tampa Bay, who passed on edge last year, and I think they hit it this year, and he settles right into their 3-4 and is very, very solid on day one. Pittsburgh Steelers on the clock here. I've got them going wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. They need wide receiver help, man. We've seen it as they've kind of fallen apart this year, coming in second place in my Till I Collapse awards. That offense just stalled this year. As soon as George Pickens went out, the offense couldn't do anything. They couldn't move the ball through the air at all. That just goes to show you that there's no depth there. Yeah, I know Roman Wilson. I'm sorry. Roman Wilson is not proven to be a number 2. And obviously, Emeka Egbuka hasn't played in the league, but he is a significantly better prospect than Roman Wilson and might even be wide receiver 1 come day one. I mean, Pickens has some serious issues to work through, man. The having to be brought back into the game by his team and fired up again in a game that they need. You need to win. You got to win this game, and he wasn't up for it. So I don't know what's going on with him, but Emeka Egbuka gives you a silky smooth route runner, someone that whoever's playing quarterback for them will love to have underneath, and he'll just be open all the time. Los Angeles Rams on the clock here. You absolutely have to address the offensive line. And while I'm a little bit more down on this guy than I was earlier in this cycle as I've gotten into his tape, I cannot deny the season he had. Big Ten Offensive Lineman of the Year. Great size for the position at 6'6", 330 pounds. He's just not as quick as you'd like. And he obviously at that size, it's hard to be quick. Not very bendy. I just worry about him going up against speed rushers. But going up against someone bigger, like a bigger defensive end, I think he won't have any problems at all. And who knows, maybe his lateral agility will come through a little bit better once he transitions into the NFL. I just didn't love it at Minnesota. Green Bay on the clock here. I've got them going with DB corner Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. I think you have to address defensive back here with Jair Alexander getting up there in age. And he's also got injury concerns. And after him, you've got some serious questions at the position. Morrison's a guy that should be going higher than this, but you're getting the injury discount since he's missed most of the year this year. He played in 6 games, so nothing too crazy there. Only gave up 12 catches. He's just been pretty much locked down, having more interceptions than touchdowns allowed. You want to see that 9 picks to 4 touchdowns allowed? Yes, please. And then passer rating when targeting a 29.2 is absolutely absurd. 60.8 is still awesome, and 58.4 is fantastic. This guy's a stud. Good size for the position as well. You have him and Jair playing together, and you're in good business. And then whenever Jair gets too old for it or decides to move on or whatever happens, Morrison's could be a really good lockdown number 1 corner. Chargers on the clock here, man, and I'm absolutely tugging it at Jim Harbaugh's heartstrings here because there's 2 Michigan men sitting there staring at him, and I've been hammering Colston Loveland to them. I'm going to switch it up and go with Kenneth Grant. I just think he gives them a little bit more attitude on the defensive line that you need. You've got a bunch of aging guys there. He's awesome. It's overshadowed by his teammate Mason Graham, but Kenneth Grant would be one of the best defensive tackles in the nation, and everyone would be talking about him as one of the first 15 picks in the draft if it weren't for how good Mason Graham was. So I'm going to go defensive line here, and doesn't that feel like a Chargers pick? Like, Harbaugh is committed to the trenches completely, so he's not going to take a tight end in the first round, and because he can get a different Michigan man. It's covered. I want Colston Loveland because he's from Michigan, so is Kenneth Grant. You can get Kenneth Grant on your team and have him just be a rock in the middle of your defensive line. Pick 26, Washington on the clock here. I'm going to go tackle Cameron Williams. I break down for Cameron Williams a little all over the place. I haven't gotten to go into his deep dive as much as I would like to, but what I do like about Cameron Williams is his size. Perfect size for offensive tackle. I don't think you need to worry about moving him into guard, Washington. I think he just plugs right in and can be a starter at either tackle position for you where they still need help. And I'm a fan of Cameron Williams. He just needs to be coached up a little bit, so you got to hope Washington can get that figured out, but he has all of the upside you would want to see. So moving on to Baltimore here. I've got them going with edge rusher Shemar Stewart out of Texas A&M. Another one of those bigger defensive end. Not a guy that's going to show up in the sack column a ton, but a guy that's going to eat up double teams. He's going to free up other edge rushers. He's really good in a 3-4 defensive scheme. Very similar to Nic Scourton. Similar size as well. Very, very talented. Very good player. I like this pick here for Baltimore a lot. You just line him up next to Justin Madubuike or Nnamdi Madubuike, and you're in business. Minnesota on the clock here. I've got them going. I hate when the orders are different. Minnesota, I've got them going with a cornerback. I keep giving them an RB. I've always given them a Marion Hampton. I'm going to switch it up just a little bit here. I'm going to go with Jahdae Barron. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Trey Amos, simply because of his size being a little bit better. But I think, I might end up switching this. I really like Jahdae Barron, man. Look at his numbers this year. He was locked down, didn't give up a single touchdown. I'm not straying. I like Trey Amos' size, and in a Brian Flores defense, they might value that just a little bit more. I think you can't go wrong with either of them. I don't have them both going in the first round, so take your pick, Vikings fans. Let me know. Who do you guys like more? If you've watched the tape of both of these guys, who do you like more between Jahdae Barron and Trey Amos out of Ole Miss? I can see arguments for both. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments for sure. Let's see. Moving on, Buffalo Bills here. I've got them getting a great pick in defensive tackle Walter Nolen. You just plug him right on in there next to Ed Oliver. And look at that defensive line. Walter Nolen, Ed Oliver, Gregory Rousseau, A.J. Epinesa. I mean, that is as physical of a front as you could possibly have in the NFL. I would not want to block those guys. My God, they are going to hit you so hard. No, thank you. So we're just beefing that up. He plays as a 3-tech. He can play as a 5-tech. He's got one of the most explosive first steps of the defensive tackle class this year. His size and being as explosive as he is seems illegal, truthfully. Walter Nolen's awesome and should go much higher than this. But in this instance, he falls. So he'll go pick 29 to Buffalo, bringing up Philadelphia, who I've got going with an edge rusher. First time I've had this guy in the class, Princely Umanmielen out of Ole Miss. I think it's got to be a trenches pick for the Eagles because it's always a trenches pick for the Eagles, and I don't see an offensive lineman that I love at this spot in this draft class. So that being said, we're going to go with Princely here. I haven't had him here, but he's explosive. I think he would fit really well in Vic Fangio's defense as one of their edge rushers, and he'd rotate early on in his career, but give him some time, and I think he could be really, really solid for them. Pick 31 for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going with Colston Loveland. I'm going to give them the tight end here. Getting a weapon like Loveland in Kansas City is not fair, but I do think Warren comes off the board first because of his just overall ability that he has. And if Loveland gets past a couple teams, and by a couple I mean like the Chargers. If he gets past the Chargers, I don't know why the Chiefs wouldn't at least consider moving up for him or hoping he falls to them at their pick, which will probably be pick 32. Let's just be honest. Loveland, not as good of a blocker as Warren, but he has unbelievable hands. He can catch absolutely everything, and he showed that in an offense that didn't really utilize him a whole lot at Michigan because they were so run first. But you get him in an NFL weight room, and if he's even an average blocker, just an average blocking tight end, the receiving upside that you have with him paired with just average blocking, awesome. Absolutely awesome. Last pick here for the first round of this mock draft 1.0. Detroit's going to go with an edge rusher. When you get decimated at a position in one season, most teams tend to overcompensate for that. And they're like, okay, we lost 6 edge rushers last year. We need to bring in 15 edge rushers this year so that doesn't happen again. And the way that the defensive players have been dropping like flies on Detroit, you really hate to see it. I'm giving them someone I think, he's moving up the board here. I like to see that. I'm going Jack Sawyer. Captain Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State. An elite grade this year. 9 sacks, 8 sacks last year, 32 hurries. I don't know why he's falling down board so much. Great size for the position. He feels like a Detroit Lion. He fits right on in there. High motor, gritty player. Someone who's going to get in your face. Is that not a Detroit Lion? Motor City? This dude has the highest motor of all of the edge rushers in this class. He just goes. Unsatiable desire to get to the quarterback. Very fun to watch his tape. Super versatile, deep bag of pass rushing moves. I like Jack Sawyer. I think he sneaks into the first round depending on how his combine looks. And that'll wrap up the first round. And the only round I'm going to do for mock draft 1.0. There's plenty of great players still left in this class for round 2, even into round 3. It's a pretty solid draft class. Not as good as last year's, but it's pretty dang solid, honestly. So, you guys, I want you guys to let me know in the comments what you think of this draft, what you think of who your team took, who you would have rather taken in that spot, or if I was spot on with my prediction here. Again, this is just mock draft 1.0. We have so many more to get through. We've got free agency to get through, which is going to change everything. And only the first 18 picks of the draft are set. We still got 14 more picks to be decided on who's drafting where and who will be available where. So there's a ton left to happen yet, and we're just getting into this. So if you guys ask me questions in the comments, like I said, I answer every single comment. You guys want to see or want to know more about a specific player, reach out. I've done scouting reports for all of these guys. I've done tape studies for all of these guys and more. So I'm more than happy to discuss any player that you guys want to and where I may have them in the draft class. Well, what grade do you have on him? What grade do you have on him? I'd be more than happy to discuss in the comments down below. And if you guys haven't already, if you're still hanging out, thanks for sitting through a longer one. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit that thumbs up, and we'll see you guys in the next one.